You've got an idea, you've got a business you got to start, you want a ministry you got to start, you want to start a Bible study, you want to start writing your own book, you want to start, I don't know what it is. There's something that is generative, that you're feeling creative, and you sense this negative resistance. Maybe it's a bad attitude that you get sometimes when you think about it. Maybe it's that you just can't seem to get motivated. Maybe it's all the self-doubt and negative self-talk in your life. Maybe it is actually other people coming against the idea. I want to encourage you to ask God to give you the power and the courage to break through from the resistance, because the world needs what God is calling you to create.
Created on purpose and for purpose.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daron Earlewine podcast. And I know what you're thinking right now. Where the heck's Julie, right? What happened? You know, we had momentum. We had 6 episodes. We heard all of the good things. Julie's so smart. Why have you been not letting her on the podcast? Finally, someone with some real insight. We heard it all, okay? And I appreciate some of the shots you took at me about how she's the smarter one in the relationship, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, we did hear a lot of really awesome feedback from our last series, the Parenting with a Purpose, our For Purpose podcast. It was such an honor to have Julie on as my co-host, but we were lucky that and honored that she gave us 6 episodes, but it's just me, just you and me, okay, back like the old days. And I'm hoping to come up with a topic that inspires Julie, or maybe you guys start emailing, start texting, start messaging saying, hey, we'd love to hear Julie's take on fill in the blank. See if we can't get her back on the podcast sometime soon. I know that I would enjoy that, and I know that you would as well. So if you didn't check out the Parenting for a Purpose podcast, there are 6 episodes that we just got finished doing that series, and was really happy with the content that came out of that, and really encouraged by the feedback that we've received from so many of you of trying to put some of those things into practice and kind of rethinking some of your approaches to your parenting. And maybe if you aren't parents yet, or you still hope to be at some point, there's some thoughts there to get the ball rolling. So great series. We loved that. And we next week, we're going to launch a new series called What's Next? What's Next? And that's kind of a little bit where I feel like I'm at in my life right now, and starting to ask God, what's next? And so we're going to go on that journey, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But this week, here's what I want to do. This is a unique moment in time. And one of the reasons that I'm asking the question, what's next, is we are right on the anniversary of a year of since the release of my first book, The Death of a Dream, Resurrecting Purpose When Life Doesn't Go as Planned. If you didn't know I had a book, you haven't listened to the podcast very long, but if you're brand new, I do have a book. It's called The Death of a Dream. Would love for you to go get it. You can just get it on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, wherever you want online. You can also get an e-copy of the book, and this is what I'm excited to tell you guys about. As we're here on the anniversary of the release and the publication of the actual physical book, right now available, you can get the Audible version, the audio version of the book read by myself, and you can get that out of audible.com. Stoked that that's available right now, and we're excited to announce that it's come out here at the year anniversary of the actual book. You can now get the audio book. And another resource we've put together that I want you to know about that's out now as well is we did a chapter by chapter small group study, book study. I know many of you like to be you're involved in some kind of small group at your church, or a community group, or whatever, maybe it's just a group of friends, and you read a book together, discuss it. And so we've just released the Death of a Dream small group curriculum, where you can either watch videos, the video sessions each week together. There is a participant's guide where you answer some questions, you reflect upon some questions, and you get together and discuss as a group. And you can do it as audio, or you can do it as video. And you can get information on all of that at DaronEarlewine.com. Just go to the website. We'll have it all there, DaronEarlewine.com, and you can get information on the actual book, the audio book, the small group curriculum, spiritual DNA, all the stuff is there. And so I'm just excited about that. And we've been working on these projects now for about the past 6 months. And so as they're releasing now, we're getting to the year anniversary of the book, I'm asking myself, like, okay, what's next? And as I reflected upon this past couple of years of putting this together, you may be at that place yourself. And so the three things I want to talk about today in that process is the resistance, the celebration, and the impact. And so as I look back at the book releasing, I remember reading, and I'm going to share some of this actually in this episode, and then actually in the next episode of the first part about what's next. But there was a great book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield that I read years ago. And Stephen in there talks about the resistance. And it's this idea of, it's kind of a mental, emotional, spiritual force in your life, right? He says the resistance is not a peripheral opponent. Resistance arises from within. It is self-generated and self-perpetuated. Resistance is the enemy within. And I remember, 2 years ago now, when I started the process of writing the book, how much of the resistance I felt all the way through the process to begin it, feeling like I'm not a real author. I don't know how to use the English language. I don't know where commas go, and I don't even know what a semicolon is. Like all these things, all the reasons that I couldn't, or even maybe shouldn't, or I was a fake if I did go after this dream of writing the book. And I think about it when I worked with Emily Sutherland, who worked with me on the book. I remember Emily in one of her storytelling conferences that I went to, kind of seminars. She had us think about our favorite movie, our favorite book, the person's story that has inspired us most in our life. And she made us reminisce about why that movie or book or story made such a difference and inspired us so much, and the impact it's had in our life. So we shared all that. And then Emily said, okay, I want you to imagine that person had never shared their story. And that really hit me in that moment, thinking about, man, like, if they would have believed the resistance in their own life and not created, whether it's that movie, whether that's book, whether it's that story, whether it's that song, whatever that creative aspect is that shares that story, how much the world would be at a loss had they not done it. And at that point, that thought kind of gave me the momentum I needed to bust through that level of the resistance to actually put pen to paper and not pen to paper necessarily, but type it, speak it, all the things I did to make the book happen. Because I thought, you know what? I'm not writing this book to make a bunch of money, and we sure as heck haven't made a bunch of money from the book. But maybe there's somebody out there that would say, man, hearing Daron's story, reading the book made a difference in my life. And I thought, if it's just for that, I need to push through the resistance. And I just want to encourage you, if you're at a place right now where you're feeling the I don't know, the gravitational pull, if you will, of the resistance. You've got an idea, you've got a business you got to start, you want a ministry you got to start, you want to start a Bible study, you want to start writing your own book, you want to start, I don't know what it is, there's something that is generative, that you're feeling creative, and you sense this negative resistance. Maybe it's a bad attitude that you get sometimes when you think about it. Maybe it's that you just can't seem to get motivated. Maybe it's all the self-doubt and negative self-talk in your life. Maybe it is actually other people coming against the idea. I want to encourage you to ask God to give you the power and the courage to break through from the resistance, because the world needs what God is calling you to create. And I'm glad I did, because I love to be able to celebrate with some people throughout the year. I always tell you guys, excuse me, I always ask you guys to send me emails, text messages, reach out on social media. Let me know how the book or the podcast are impacting your life. So I want to share some with you guys, because we had the resistance. Here's a little bit of the celebration and the impact of what God's done this past year. A reader reached out to me and said this: hey, just want to drop a note and say thanks and job well done on the Death of a Dream book. I'm paying greater attention to what God is doing in my life and excited about where we are headed. Thanks for the reminder that He's there with me in failure and success, all with a purpose and a vision. So it's from reader Jamie. And what I love about that is just to be able to celebrate that somebody came to a point where for them, they're celebrating and paying attention to what we where we are headed, right? He and Jesus, and understanding that God is with you, right? God is near you. God is for you. We say this every single week here on the podcast, and it's just, I'm so stoked to see for Jamie that making a difference. Here's another one. This was interesting to me, and I want to read you this testimonial because I got a handful of testimonies like this from people who said, basically like, yeah, I didn't really know that I needed your book. I bought it because I wanted to support you and because I know you or because I like the podcast or whatever, and didn't actually know that I had a death of a dream until I found myself in the middle of it. And this person says this, hey, I didn't have any particular motivation when I started reading the book, but funny God's timing and how I started getting into it shortly before I would experience the death of a dream I had never consciously embraced. With my stepfather's unexpected passing in early December, the dream I had been subconsciously carrying out of our blended family becoming a healthy family unit as adults ultimately died. I had longed to see him replace his workaholism with a fire for Jesus, at which point he would naturally prioritize our family. We would then experience the joy that comes not only through restoration, but more so through experiencing a love and a connection that we'd never had before. And then he died. Not even 1 week after the extremely successful outcome of a surgery that was highly risky going into it. And it was only in my crippling inability to attend family Christmas with this very family a few weeks later that I realized not only that I had a dream, that I had that dream to begin with, but that at least at some level it was dead and gone forever. So thank you so much for tackling this difficult and critical concept, and for your vulnerability to invite us into this concept in a gentle, loving, relatable, hopeful way. Your book has been a desperately needed companion as I continue to seek out how God ultimately wants to use this in previous pain to build his kingdom in and with me. That's from Eric. And man, I just want to say thanks so much to him for sharing that with me. But I just wonder maybe sometimes over this past years, if that's where some of you guys may be right now or where you've been. If you got in reading the book or maybe even listening to the podcast and you're just realizing, man, I had these disappointments. I had these things in my life that I didn't really realize were the death of dreams until I got verbiage for it. And now I'm actually seeing that that's real. If that's the case, I hope you're right here where this reader is, that you're realizing that God is still in these moments with you, right? You're not alone in them. As the book talks about, like life's not fair, but you're not alone. God is at work in it as he always is. This last one I want to share with you is one that stood out to me in a really cool way. This guy says, hey, Daron, I'm getting so much from your book right now. I don't know if you know how often, of course, I don't know how often because it's your life, right? But I don't know if you know how often I have actually felt guilty for pursuing my dream, right? That's the resistance right there. Oh, I feel like God's put this on my heart to do, and I've been thinking about it, and I've been dreaming about it, and I've been thinking about it since I was a kid or for the next past 2 years or whatever it is. But man, I just always feel so guilty, like I'm being so selfish. That's the resistance. I get really worried that I'm doing it for the wrong motives. I honestly have never thought about the ultimate source for those dreams being from my Creator. Your message has been lighting a fire under my butt, and I'm noticing how much more fun I'm having with my work, regardless of the outcome. Thanks, brother. Dan. I love that idea. And if you're at a place right now where you're feeling that resistance, and maybe, like you said, you're feeling that guilt, oh, this is from bad motives and whatever it is. And you know what? That's something, a great conversation to have with God. Hey, God, are my motives pure in this? Purify my heart in this. Give me an undivided heart for you and what I'm doing. And if throughout and in that process, you still have those same desires, guess what? That's your true north. There's your tuning for the turning. I can't speak in this podcast, okay? That is the tuning fork of your life. That's the direction you need to move. And you see with him, he's moving there. And I don't know what he's creating, but I'm glad that he is, because the world needs the result of the work, of the creativity, of the faithfulness that inspires him to do what he's doing, because it's coming from the heart of God. I got a handful more reviews and just testimonies I could share, but I want to close out this episode today and get us ready for this next series we're doing starting next week of this What's Next, because the reality is where I'm at right now is I am asking this question, what's next? And I think I'm about 99% sure I know what's next, and guess what is showing up in a major way in my life right now? The resistance. Because here's what I think I'm going to do, 99% sure. I'm going to start writing my next book next month. And putting all the pieces together. I've got a great concept, I think. I've got what I want to do with it. And when I think about it, I feel like I don't know how to write a book. I feel like I'm not even actually a real author. I feel like no one probably wants to hear from me again. I feel like I'm not sure I can do this again. This is probably too much work. I can't stay focused enough. All of this head trash in my brain leading up to the decision to write this next book. And here's what I kind of wished in my life. I was kind of hoping that, I'd write a book and I would overcome the resistance. I'd get these, messages from you guys and from so many other people and be like, wow, if you're faithful to do the courageous thing that God's asking you to do, you're faithful to create, guess what? You'll feel courageous and amazing afterwards, and it'll just be complete momentum the rest of your life. And then here I am, literally reading to you the impact that my faithfulness and actually my courage to push the resistance 2 years ago did. And in the moments, I'm still feeling discouraged, like, I'm not sure about that. Stephen Pressfield says it like this: resistance is experienced as fear. The degree of fear equates to the strength of resistance. Therefore, the more fear we feel about a specific enterprise, the more certain we can be that that enterprise is important to us and to the growth of our soul. That's why we feel so much resistance. If it meant nothing to us, there'd be no resistance. So I just wonder in your life, if you're asking your question, you know what? What's next? What's next in my life? What's the next challenge? What's the next thing we need to create? What's the next thing that God's going to invite me to step into? You probably need to start looking at the place where you sense the most resistance. This past week was kind of weird. I was putting together some of the talks for preaching here in Indianapolis, and then some of this podcast work. And the subject matter was something I was really passionate about. Subject matter is something that I talk about all the time, helping people find purpose. And for 2 weeks, every time I tried to get focused and do the work, I had a bad attitude. Like to the point where I didn't want to work, I didn't want to focus. And then deeper than that, it was to the point where I'm like having these weird negative thoughts about, do I even want to do this anymore? Like, do I even want to speak anymore? Which most of the time I am throttled down, ready to go, bring on today. What are we doing today, Jesus? Kind of situation. And for 2 weeks, just a thick cloud of resistance. And what I know that to be is the enemy of our souls and of our purpose trying to come and discourage, trying to get me to stop, trying to quit, get me to quit. And thank God I didn't, I haven't, I don't plan on it. Because the good news, right, is the Word of God tells us that God has given us not a spirit of fear, but He's given us a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. And so I want to encourage you, as we begin this series next week about talking about what's next, I want you to take this next week, right? And I want you to start asking God, what's next? And this may feel a little bit off-putting or scary, but I want you to start looking at your life and finding out, where do you sense the most resistance? Where do you feel the most fear about moving forward and progressing? Because likely it's where that fear is and where you feel that most resistance that God is drawing you into, and the enemy is trying to keep you from progressing. So spend some time, take a look at the resistance, and let's come back next week ready to tackle this question of what's next. Okay? Once again, I want to thank every single one of you that bought my book, I want to thank you, everyone who's downloading the podcast. So great to have so many new people joining us here in the podcast community. I want to thank everyone that has jumped into spiritual DNA and is going through the course. Just thousands of people that are seeing their spirit and God's purpose in life awakened for them to become what they were born to be. And I want to thank you for being a part of that community. And I'm excited for what's next. So let's get back together next week, and we'll jump into this topic. Once again, thanks so much. Get the audiobook, get the small group curriculum, go to DaronEarlewine.com. All the information's there. And we'll talk to you next time. But until we do, remember, God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far away. And He's created you on purpose and for a purpose. Talk to you guys next time.